The Drug Enforcement Administration's warning of a surge in overdose deaths from fake prescription drugs.
We have a man who's on a fentanyl overdose. Hold up, I'm almost there.
Counterfeit fentanyl pills are now mass-produced on the black market, the Russian roulette of drugs.
Administered 1 dose of Narcan. But I'm probably gonna need more.
Nearly 75% of the 93,000 drug-related deaths last year were attributed to illegal fentanyl.
It's the pandemic within the pandemic.
The DEA now is calling fentanyl, this is, quote, a public health, public safety, and national security threat.
Authorities are now trying to target the sellers, believed to be the merchants of death.
This is something that will kill you on your first time if the conditions are right.
You have to assume the worst when you're talking about fentanyl because it can be so potent. And we use the analogy, you always treat a gun like it's loaded.
Fentanyl, it changes everything because there's no more second chances.
Somebody once told us when someone gives you a dime, it's because you're a 10. And of course, Brandon heard about it for a lot of years. And I have always found dimes randomly all over the house, all over, that Brandon left. You know, and later, weeks later, he would say, "Did you find that dime I put in the shower?" Yep, it's still there.
He had that strong, self-willed spirit. I do remember it was his 5th grade teacher. During a parent-teacher conference, he said, you know, your son is, how should we put it? Unconventional. He just had his way of doing his own thing, and sometimes that was really good, and sometimes, yeah, not so good. I think moving here from Arizona, we noticed that he had a hard time adjusting to the area. So we were just trying to be patient and work with that.
He told me at about 16, somebody offered him a cigarette, and then someone offered him marijuana. From there, it was just trying to find bigger and better.
I don't think it was the drugs themselves that attracted him at first. It was the excitement.
After he graduated, that was when getting arrested started being a thing and was happening more frequently.
Investigators say Brandon Wintringham used prop money to buy a $1,600 motorcycle from...
Brandon was facing quite a few forgery charges, huge charges of 3 to 4 years in prison. COVID came and they were looking for someone to let out as far as on probation instead of going to prison.
It's about keeping this pandemic out of Oregon's prisons.
Tonight, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office tells KGW they've reduced their jail population by 30%.
They called his name, says you're free to go. It was an act of mercy that probably opened his eyes to, I'm probably not going to get a whole lot more chances. I better do something now.
He just came to me one day and said, "I'm done. I don't want to live this life anymore. Everybody I know is either in prison or dead, and I don't want to end up there." Brandon needed to come home and have a support system and to do it once again his way so that it would last. Brandon decided, I'm going to start reading, so every time I want to use, I'm going to read. That kid read probably 18 hours a day. That's how much he wanted to use.
But he also checked into Celebrate Recovery, Narcotics Anonymous.
He would bring his paperwork home that he had taken notes on and share with me what they were going through, and he could be who he was and share what he was actually feeling rather than just being numb to everything.
To celebrate their sobriety, they give out coins, and he was so proud of these. Like, here's 4 months clean. And of course, I made that for him, and he had this up on his shelf where he could look at it all the time, just a reminder that, hey, I got to fight this battle. So I was pretty proud of him. We celebrated every 30 days, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and we made it a big deal.
Even when he didn't want to make it a big deal.
Yeah. We had adopted another girl. We brought her into our home about 5 years ago. So when Brandon came into the scene, he became her big brother.
He was probably the best brother any girl could ask for. He was funny, he was kind. Anytime that I needed him, I knew he would always be there. And he always gave me good words of encouragement and advice.
He started applying for jobs that he could easily get to either by bus or walking. And the poor guy just, rejected all the time because of his record. They gave him an opportunity. And within months, they gave him a key. They gave him the code to the safe. He's counting money. And I'm thinking, if you would have known this kid a year ago, you guys would have been out of your mind. We got to see the potential that was locked up in there for so long and just covered up because of drugs. They allowed that to come out. Brandon kind of lived in extremes. And so whenever he did something, he really gave it his all. He gave laziness his all. But he also gave other things everything he had when he played high school football. And there's only 11 guys on the team, it's a small team. And he played all 4 quarters. He gave it his all. When he did drugs, he gave it his all. And then when he got off of drugs and wanted to be clean, he really
gave it his all.
We knew that he was getting a little bit lonelier, and the isolation was kind of weighing on him. And because he did make a couple of comments like, I don't have any friends. You know,
can
good
only
friends.
rely on your mom to hang out with and your dad and your little sisters so much. Eventually you need some friends. And that night he just felt, I'm sure, completely lonely and said, one last time, I'll just try just something for now.
Me and Brandon had gotten into some sort of argument that day, but we never really went to bed angry at each other. And he was going out to the shed to go to bed, and I just hugged him goodnight and said that I loved him. And yeah, that was my last interaction with him.
There were 4 pills. He took 2 of them, and the other 2 they found. And it was instant. He did not know what hit him.
When I first started narcotics investigations, I'd never heard of fentanyl. I think law enforcement in general weren't prepared for it. We didn't realize how small of an amount of fentanyl was a deadly amount. We didn't realize that literally grains, the size of grains of sand, could kill somebody.
It's a drug 50 times more potent than heroin.
It overwhelms your opiate receptors, and the onset is extremely rapid. So you get that euphoria, you get this analgesia, like you feel like you're floating, but then the side effect of that is it knocks out your respiratory drive. Just like, it can be like that.
Fentanyl is sold in pill form, most frequently in our area. They are pressed in illegal labs, and they're made to look like something that a doctor would prescribe.
When you take a drug that you may think does not have any fentanyl in it, it might have trace amounts of synthetic fentanyl. And with synthetic fentanyl, it could be pure, it could be very, very dilute. You just don't know.
The DEA tested a bunch of counterfeit pharmaceutical pills seized across the country earlier this year. It found 27% had potentially lethal doses of fentanyl.
Fentanyl has really become an issue over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, but particularly, especially since the pandemic started.
Loneliness and isolation being linked to many overdoses.
It's the pandemic within the pandemic.
People in recovery, going to meetings, hanging out, fellowshipping, doing everyday life stuff that reinforces and supports the recovery, that has been destroyed.
My heart aches when I hear of these stories because some people are absolutely able to overcome whatever substance that they become dependent and addicted to, and they're functional, and they're doing okay. But in reality, it doesn't take much to have them go back into where they were. And in these situations, it's extremely dangerous when that happens.
I figured that Brandon would relapse. It's a part of recovery, but I didn't know that it would end it all. One relapse. I thought it would just move him on to progress and become stronger.
Fentanyl, it changes everything because there's no more second chances.
I would consider fentanyl endemic in the community, which means it's just there. So for example, if you get a Xanax pill, you picked it up from the pharmacy and it's been in your possession the whole time, and you know it's the medicine that you use, should you be worried about fentanyl? No. However, say for example, you buy Xanax somewhere on the street in Portland. Should you be concerned it has fentanyl? 100%. I'm talking about drugs that are perfectly legal. These medicines that we use for entirely, medically related purposes, the moment they enter the street and you are buying them through the black market, you just have to assume they might have fentanyl on them. I mean, we use the analogy, you always treat a gun like it's loaded.
It's heart-wrenching to know that there are people out there who are contributing to this knowingly. They know what they're doing. It's not an accident, and so there needs to be justice.
When we respond to an overdose death, immediately the Clackamas County Interagency Task Force treats it like a homicide. And the reason that we do that is because the deceased was given that substance by somebody else. Fentanyl pills are in the lead for narcotics that are being investigated by our team. It's inexpensive to manufacture, and it's a moneymaker for the drug trafficking organizations. We've never been interested in going after the end user. The organizations that are purely profiting from these people's addiction, that's our focus. Those are the people that we are trying to get in front of and stop. And if we're able to follow that distribution chain, we're able to hopefully get the rest of the substance that hasn't been sold off of the streets before somebody else overdoses and dies.
In Clackamas County, federal agents seized tens of thousands of fake prescription pills laced with fentanyl. They call it the largest single fentanyl seizure in Oregon's history.
The street value of the drugs seized in this operation is approximately $4 million. Let that sink in.
You could really tell by the memorial service, the people that came, that he touched so many people in so many different ways. His life counted.
It did. And I think this world, even though they don't know it, they're missing what he was about to offer.
You have been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless.
The reality of it, that he's gone forever, is completely unbelievable.
Yeah.
You still feel like he's gonna come through the door. You still wake up and think that you had a dream, and the dream was real, that he's really back where he should be. We still find dimes here and there, sometime in random places. One night there was two stacked one on top of each other on the floor, on the carpet.
And you were digging through some stuff and you're like, God, I just need something from you. And wipe off your dresser and there's I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah, so the dimes have been really significant, and oops, that's why this one's right here. And it'll be there forever.